A lot of us feel very uncomfortable about the situation and commentary regarding Gaza.
Therefore be disproportionate, because they're almost expecting a tit for tat, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, no more.
Hello there. Today we're covering a lot of topics, so buckle up for the ride. From the Middle East to AI, there's a lot going on at the moment. And earlier in the week, Richard and I got together for one of our chats, and we decided to share it with you. These chats are our musings to get the creative juices flowing, so we thought we'd give you an insight into them. Now, you may not agree with some of what we say, or maybe even all of it, but that's okay, you have that right. This is our perspective on the current state of the world. But first, here's a couple of quick snippets that have happened since Richard and I got together for our chat. Gary Lineker. Yes, I know. He of smugness of expression is backing the pro-Palestine marches on Armistice Day. Does he do this sort of thing just to wind people up? Does he not worry that those protests will be upsetting a minority within the UK? Can't his brain cell take that concept in? Has he not heard that the Israeli government has warned its citizens against worldwide travel, and that Jews now feel that London is a more dangerous place than Israel is right now? Is Gary happy that Jews now feel unsafe in the UK? Innocent Jews that have not been involved in operations regarding the Gaza Strip. And now we learn that arrests have been made during today's protests, including one being made under the Terrorism Act. And next week's events are supposedly going to be bigger than this week's. While loads of pictures and effigies of Gaza child casualties were placed around Trafalgar Square, which no one, including the police it seems, attempted to remove. Oh, and the Department for Culture, Media and Sport took the chance this weekend to remove the flags from the cenotaph to have them cleaned and spruced up, ready for Remembrance Weekend. But there are also signs that Remembrance Weekend could be confrontational, with protest leaflets being circulated saying that on Saturday the 11th of November, we escalate. With planned sit-ins at Charing Cross, Victoria Station and Waterloo Station at 3 p.m. Now that's well after the 2-minute silence at 11 a.m, although what they'll be doing at 11 a.m. during the 2-minute silence is yet unclear. And although this is the poppy wearing period up until Remembrance Sunday, as far as I could tell from the images from the protest, the police were not wearing them. Despite the Met Police Chief Mark Rowley saying back in August that wearing one was only right and proper. Now, I've just about got over the bout of flu I've had and losing my voice, but still feeling a bit rough around the edges. And I still have a very dry throat, hence all the special cough juice I'm drinking throughout the upcoming video. Enjoy.
Jeff.
Richard.
A lot of us feel very uncomfortable about the situation and commentary regarding Gaza. The problem is that I just don't feel comfortable. You have to take a side on what's taking place between Israel and Gaza, right?
Well, Hamas, yeah.
Obviously, something terrible took place a few weeks ago in Israel. However, the response from the desired response by Hamas has actually manifested now, because we are now seeing Israel going in harder continuously on a day-by-day basis. Now this means that we're going to start seeing a lot more of these casualties, and regardless of if, obviously, a response is required, and this concept of proportionality is just crazy. I mean, how can you act proportionally during war? I mean, did we react proportionately with Dresden, for instance? It's very difficult to say. War is war. It's uncomfortable. But at the same time, I have seen the footage of what's taken place in Gaza and stuff that's been put on social media, and it's pretty horrific.
Yeah, I can understand all that. People will be looking at at this and thinking, well, the Israelis lost this many. The Palestinians in the Gaza Strip lost far more than that, so it must therefore be disproportionate, because they're almost expecting a tit for tat, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, no more. However, when you're dealing with someone like Hamas, and it's got its updated, I think it was in 2017, sort of basis of operations, it says in there quite clearly that their aim is the destruction of that country, to remove it. And they still run the Gaza Strip, and they are intent on removing Israel and all the Jews from the area. They just want them gone.
Not just from the area, off the earth, I think.
Possibly even wider, but just eradicating Israel is their intent, and that's what they will continue to do. And at the moment, Israel was forced to go in to try and hunt these people down and rescue hostages, by the way, which is a big thing. I don't know how many hostages Israel has got from the West Bank or from the Gaza Strip. I don't think they've got any hostages as such. They're not parading them around or doing anything like Hamas did. So they're going in and they want to save as many of those people as they can, but a lot of people just think it's disproportionate. Why can't you sit around the table? Why can't we have a ceasefire? Have a ceasefire now. Save lives now, this second, right now. Another life saved. The trouble is, you can't trust Hamas. They broke the last ceasefire on the 7th of October. They broke a ceasefire to do those horrific acts. And they were ready. They were trained and they were prepared to do so. They will do it again. Absolutely no doubt in my mind at all. They must be stopped. And if they're going to use humans, innocent humans, as shields, it is on them, not on the Israelis, not on the Israelis. And they have to go in. They are forced to go in to do this. If they don't, this will be going on for decades and decades. Death after death after death on both sides. And remember also that Hamas and now Hezbollah from Lebanon are firing missiles, rockets. Now these aren't guided rockets, they're not super duper things like the Israelis use targeting people and assets on the ground, military assets. These things are just sprayed in the air and they're just expected to land anywhere, any city, as long as it drops on Jews. And that's what, and people forget this, and this is going on. They fired something like anywhere between 2,000 and 5,000 rockets into Israel on the 7th.
I mean, I have read that there's something anywhere between 150,000 to 200,000 rockets currently pointing at Israel from the Lebanon, from Hezbollah.
Yeah.
I mean, if those are launched, what kind of response can we expect from Israel?
A very big one, I would expect. And if they thought an attack was coming, if their intelligence told them that an attack was coming, and I would surmise that they get their intelligence from some very serious sources outside of Israel, you can guess who they are, I would almost guarantee that they would hit first. They would take those things out before they fired.
How do you take out 150,000 to 200,000 rockets in one fell swoop, though? That's my question.
Yeah, it is. It's a good question. You take out as many as you can.
What, are we looking nuclear here?
If it went nuclear, it would be a big move. I think the only thing that would make Israel go nuclear is if it was just about to be wiped out completely.
Which is my point, really. I mean, 200,000, 150 to 200,000 rockets being launched in one day, potentially. I mean, that's going to overpower the Iron Dome system. So, could such I can't imagine it being a first step, but it could be a first step, though, to launch something nuclear, because essentially 150,000 to 200,000 rockets fired at Israel will decimate the country.
Well, it depends on their accuracy. It depends on where they fall, and if they know they're coming in, they do have bunkers and things. If they know they're coming, early warning. So I don't know. I don't think anyone knows what the next step there is. But Israel has got to defend itself. It is under attack now from many sides. And Iran is just gearing up. And we've already heard that Turkey wants to go into Gaza as well. Their military, he wants to go in. Erdogan. So, it's looking very tasty over there at the moment. But as you said, it is very difficult to watch a war where people are dying at such a rate because of military action, direct military action.
Yes, I've seen some of this footage on social media, footage that I cannot unsee. Horrific stuff. Now, I know that some people will say that this is staged, but I'm sorry, if you are firing rockets into I'm talking about Israel now, firing rockets into a heavily populated area, there are going to be civilian casualties.
Yes, there are.
Yeah. Is there any way that this can play out without there being a military intervention that plays into the hands of Hamas? Because Hamas want civilian casualties.
Yes.
They want this to show to the rest of the world. They want to parade this in front of the rest of the world to say, look, these are the evil Jews, which is, and I don't say that lightly.
No, I know.
Because this is the hate speech that is taking place right now in our country and right across the world, on the streets and on social media. We now have the Star of David being sprayed on the front doors of Jews right across Europe, and I'm like, this is serious.
It is. It's very serious. I don't think our authorities and our government really have a handle on how serious this is. I really don't. They've had the police going around basically helping to remove the posters of the missing children. They've been helping to remove them, and not just in London either, in other places as well. And they are seen to be on one side and one side only. And I don't think they realise what they're doing. They are losing the public over this. And just because a load of people, hundreds of thousands of people, gather in London to support one side or the other, doesn't make any difference. We had all that during Brexit. We had the claimed 2 million people in London. And someone turned around and said, no, get more than 17.4 million and we'll talk. But they couldn't. So it never happened. And the silent majority out there who sit at home and watch all this, they're not on that side.
My question as well here is, what message is this sending to the Jewish community? I mean, if you're seeing these posters of these children being taken down by the police,
or they watch it happen and do nothing.
Yes, where pro-Israel or pro-Jewish, I should actually say. I don't say the word demonstration or protest. I'm just saying more of a vigil. I would hasten to add, really, in that context is the. I mean, the police are stopping these things from taking place. These vigils and processions, procession, that's the word I was looking for. These processions were banned by the police.
Well, they would say they advised them not to operate or not to conduct them. So, and when they didn't, they said, thank you very much. But there was no hint that you have freedom of expression just like the others have. If the other side are the problem, because remember, the police did say when those pro-Israeli marches were going to be held, the police advised them not to do it. So they said, okay, we won't. But the other side were allowed to carry on. Why didn't the police stop them?
Well, fear.
They can't be frightened, can they? What is there to be frightened of? A few people expressing themselves. Free expression. Yeah. And if they are frightened, then we do have a serious problem and the government needs to wake up, and so does the opposition. And all those MPs screaming out in support, ceasefire, ceasefire. If a ceasefire occurs, Hamas regroups. It's not about the people of Gaza for them, it's about them regrouping. They're in their caverns below where people live. And they operate there in the dark.
Or from the Qatari.
Oh, from Qatar, yeah. I'm going to run my
board.
army from there, and all the people of Gaza can just wallow in the results. What a bunch of,
But we still have good relations with Qatar, though.
Of course we do.
I believe that, that there's been some investment into property of King Charles by the...
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, but anyway.
Yeah.
So, no, I mean, I was reading about, watching, I should say, about an NHS doctor who was there supporting... I'm not going to say exactly what, but anyway, I mean, if I was a Jewish person right now, and I'd fallen ill and I needed to have an operation.
Correct. That is exactly how I'd feel. I'd be very worried. I'd be looking for someone of the same faith to be looking after me, because I would not be able to trust the NHS. And I don't think people realise that the fear this puts into someone. You need to go in for a rush appendectomy. How do you know what's going to happen to you? How do you know? The NHS has got a lot of serious questions to ask itself, and so have our security forces. We really are falling into a big, deep pond of mud, basically.
Yes. No, I mean, I think I'd be looking at getting some kind of private health insurance. I mean, even to the point where I'd be saying, I need... Sorry, the fire's crackling here.
Yeah.
Isn't it lovely? I'd be looking to get some kind of private health insurance with a... I sound ridiculous saying it, but where I would be guaranteed Jewish doctors, Jewish nurses, Jewish aftercare, all the way through the system. Because it's quite clear that there are people within our system who hate the Jewish people.
Correct.
And
the fact that they're allowed to operate within that system is, well, it's not very good, to say the least. Because if who's next? Who's next?
Well, I mean, right now it's the Jews are facing it. Christians will be next, I'm sure. And atheists. Mind you, this is trying to say that... No, I'm not trying to say that, actually. I don't want to try and say that one part of our society would actively go out and cause harm to everybody else who is not part of that society, but then again, I don't know. I don't know is the long and short of it. I'm not going to make any claims on that, but it does make you wonder.
Yes, it does. And it would make, if I was Jewish and I needed an operation, I would not want to put myself in the hands of the NHS at the moment. I really wouldn't. I don't know how they're feeling. I really don't. They must be in fear, living in fear.
Yes.
Not just in this country, but across the whole of Europe and maybe even the wider world, in America and places like. That is just ridiculous. And it's, the Holocaust. When was that? 1930s and 40s.
Yes. You'd have thought we'd have come along since then as a society and as a world, but...
No, it just seems to be a knee-jerk reaction by some people. It really is a knee-jerk reaction by some people. And it should be consigned to the dustbin of history. We're meant to be this tolerant country. We in the UK are meant to be tolerant. Suddenly, we're intolerant all around. And all because we think that someone is by defending themselves, they shouldn't. I get the impression they just want Israel to just lie down and die. I really do. A lot of people in this country, I think they do.
It's very difficult. I as I said, I'm still thinking about if there is any other way of resolving this. As a Christian, I personally find it very difficult to take a side, even though I do believe the state of Israel has every right to exist, and the Jewish people who are there. We have to remember about Israel. It's not just a nation; it's a safe haven for these people.
Yeah.
It's the only place on earth where, at least, the state and the system is there should be there to protect them.
Yeah. Well, that's where a lot of people are blaming Netanyahu for what happened, because he allowed it to happen. They weren't tight enough. Security just wasn't tight enough, and it just shows. It just shows when as soon as they let go, and just think, oh, it's all right now, someone attacks them. I remember, I think I've told you this before, back in the 90s when I was living in London, and I used to go across a railway bridge that overlooked a synagogue. Right. And I used to go over the bridge on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning, depending on the day, and go for a fry up. Okay. In the little local, the local greasy spoon. Really good it was. And anyway, every time I went over the bridge, if there was a service going on in the synagogue, there was a guard. One of the Jewish population stood there, bloke, with a radio, overlooking it. And I thought that was a bit weird back then, because I didn't actually realise that, the sort of how tense it was. But that was back then. I wonder what it's like today.
I can honestly say, I mean, if I was, it might sound like, why would you even consider that? But if I was Jewish, I would be considering moving to Israel. And you might think, well, there's a war zone there, there's rockets flying. Yes, that's today. Yeah. But I mean, what's tomorrow here in Britain? What do they have to look forward to?
Well, they're being targeted today in this country. Yeah. And that is not right. That is just not right.
Slight deviation here. Last night I was watching an interview with Mr. David Icke, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I've got a lot of time for David Icke in a lot of respects. There are things I completely disagree with him on. And I mean completely disagree with him on. But it reminds me, I actually met him years ago. I believe it was in Cardiff somewhere. He was giving a speech, and I went along to have a little look. I thought, and I agreed with a lot of what he said. Again, there was a lot that I did not agree with. But hey, that's you and I disagree on so many things as well. Yeah. But the point is that outside his speech, there was all these far left-wing protesters calling him an anti-Semite. Okay, whether he is or not is another question. I don't know, is the long and short of that. But it's quite strange that those very same people on the left, now, today, are involved in a protest with how can I explain this? With an ethos that a certain nation should not exist, effectively.
Yeah, yes.
So they themselves have become the anti-Semites. And yet they themselves now are embodying that very worst expression of the far right.
Well, they're disguising it. They're saying, oh, no, we're just calling for a ceasefire. But while they're doing it, they're chanting. They're chanting from the chants of Hamas, all about clearing. Here's a good one for you. Years and years and years and years ago, there was a British politician who mentioned a river.
Oh, yes.
We all know who he was, and he was warning us and talking about a river. He was ostracised, and this was, however many years ago, decades ago, and he was absolutely vilified. Now we have people going around talking about a river and a sea and clearing everything between the two of them. And they are doing it willingly, gleefully, and singing and shouting about it. Those people need to wobble their heads, as they like to tell other people, because they seriously are advocating what is in effect genocide. And if they don't understand that, if they don't realise that, they really do need to look into it. But of course they won't. They'll just say, oh, we just want a ceasefire from the river to the sea. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's how they frame it. No, I don't believe, most of them, when they just say that, I think they are anti-Semitic.
Oh yes. Again, this brings me actually to the question of that there's a difference. One of the arguments presented is there is a difference between anti-Semitism and believing in the nation that the state of Israel should not exist. That there is a difference.
I don't believe that for 1 second.
I don't.
No, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
No, they try to separate it. They talk about Zionism and Jewry and all the rest of it.
Yes.
I do not believe it. I believe they just lump it all together and they just use words as an excuse.
Yes. Yeah, totally. I mean, for me, if there isn't a state of Israel, I don't believe there'd be a Jewish people. We have to remember that throughout history, we had in the 1950s, there was the second exodus from Egypt, which is where Jews were expelled from Egypt.
Yeah.
And prior to 1948 as well, Jews were being hunted out of the Middle East, pushed out of the Middle East, pushed out of Europe, hunted. I mean, I'm not just talking about what happened in Germany in the 1930s and 1940s, but also I'm thinking more towards Russia. I mean, my goodness. You know, the Jews were persecuted throughout the world.
Yeah, and it has to stop.
The only place they were given was Israel.
Yeah, and that came from the British Mandate, so that was handed over to them. And the whole thing they should have just kept. But as soon as they got it, they were attacked from all sides. Because the countries around them just wanted to push them into the med and get rid of them. It backfired on them, and they lost. Israel won. So what were they meant to do? You know.
I think to sum it up on this, I think the point about Israel, the state of Israel being needed, is if there is no state of Israel, there are no Jews.
No.
To say that you don't believe in the state of Israel is a de facto way of actually saying, I don't believe the Jews should exist.
That's how I read it.
Yeah, because without the state of Israel, they have no protection. That is their single point of protection.
Because no one else. No, I mean, okay, we provide military aid, and America does a lot, and they did shoot some missiles down that were heading to, because they didn't know whether they were going to come towards the fleet or towards Israel, so they shot them down. So that's the American fleet that's out there, and I think the second one is either on the way or almost there. So they'll have two lots there. So, you know, that might bolster the Iron Dome. I don't know if that's the case. How
much can you prepare for a single launch, potentially a single launch of 150,000 missiles?
Yeah. I don't know if they've got 150,000 missiles. I mean, we don't know. We can surmise. Yes. Yeah. But, it's a very difficult question. But back to the original point, yes, children are dying and are being maimed in this war. They were killed in Israel as well, and they're now dying in the Gaza Strip. And where do you lay the blame? And it's
part of it can go towards Egypt, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, they should have opened that Rafah crossing a lot earlier.
Why haven't they? I mean, why haven't they actually opened it up and said, look?
I mean, they could have invited. I'm sure the UN would have come in with a camp, and we'd have probably paid a lot of money. Americans would have paid a lot of money to put them in a camp in Egypt. And I'll tell you why: because they're worried, and they might rightly be worried that Israel won't let them back. They'll take Gaza completely and keep it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that would be a stupid thing to do, but because it's not that big. But that's what Egypt's worried about. But they're also worried about maybe a lot of these terrorists that are in Gaza come across the border into a camp and then start doing things in there, you know, and they've got lots of problems in that area as well, with roaming terrorists within Egypt.
Well, my question also is the hypothetical scenario here. What do you think the IDF are going to encounter if everybody from the Gaza Strip left and went across the Rafah crossing? What do you think might be left behind?
Yeah, not much, except lots of mines and
booby
traps.
Yeah, booby traps and
there'll be
biological. I'm just throwing this out there, but I mean,
I don't know.
You know, could we be looking at a scorched earth policy if they are driven out? That's the other side of it.
Or the other side of it, it could be if Israel goes in and everyone leaves Gaza, or a lot of people leave Gaza, will Israel do a scorched earth policy in the Gaza Strip and then remove themselves and leave behind virtually nothing? So it's a very, very difficult one. Everybody's in a difficult situation. But if I was attacked in the way that Israel was attacked, I would not rest until I'd got the perpetrators.
I mean, you've seen war yourself firsthand. It's not something I've ever seen, and I'm very grateful for it. But I do fear that we may see war come to Europe as well.
Well, the German defence minister has said exactly that. We need to prepare for war. Now, there are two facets to that. We should never prepare for war once we realise it's almost here. If you want peace, prepare for war at all times. And that's a lesson we keep on and on forgetting.
But surely the military bigwigs in this country and across Europe know that already, and have known
The
this.
military bigwigs do.
Yes.
But the politicians who spend the money do not, and they do not care. They're in there for 4-5 years, maybe. But
they've just invited, technically, or potentially, I should say, invited an army into Europe, an opposing army.
That's another discussion entirely. And the reason they've done that is because they feel they've got no choice. Because the birth rate across the Western world is dropping. It's down to people not having babies. We're not having them. We don't want them. We don't want babies. They're too time consuming.
Too expensive.
Expensive.
I mean, today we've got a situation where it takes 2 wages coming in. A family wage of we'll just say, let's be traditional here. We'll say the husband and the wife. Okay.
Shock.
I know. I'm just using that as an example. I don't believe in such things, of course.
Yeah.
Anyway, so society is set up so that in effect you require 2 wages to be able to just pay the rent. Never mind a mortgage. Forget a mortgage. We're talking just being able to pay the rent. No luxuries. I read recently one in however many, 8 I believe. I might be wrong here. People in Wales. I need to fact check there actually. 1 in 8 families in Wales or people in Wales are on a food bank. And I don't know if that is true or not. That might be complete rubbish. But society is effectively set up so that it is unaffordable for people to not just rent but to own their own properties. So we are then propping up a system here that makes it impossible for people to procreate.
Well, it's
afford to be able to procreate, I should say.
It's because, believe it or not, we're not living like humans should. So, and that stops us procreating. It's if we were a bit more relaxed about our lives and we are able to be a bit more free and able to, when we had more time off, instead of slaving all the time, we would actually have time for families. But we don't have time. The other side of it is, of course, that people are now told as they're growing up, right, you've got to get a house, you've got to get a car, you must have a holiday, Christmas must be fantastic, then you got another holiday, then you go to work for a week and you deserve another holiday. I don't see anywhere in that list a move towards having children. And the state doesn't think children are important. They just do not think they're important, because what they now do is they just bring another load of people into the country because they're out there, they want to come here. We may as well fill the country up because we're not having babies. And when you look at Italy, its population will start declining over natural population. That's the new word for it. Used to call it indigenous, but the ONS has come up with this wonderful term called the natural population, because you can't really. But so the natural population of Italy is collapsing over the next few decades. So they're now stuck between how do we look after the elderly, because it's the population collapse is happening at the younger end.
Yes.
So there's fewer and fewer and fewer workers. So what you have to do is you have to bring people in who will have babies. That's what they're doing. But instead of saying to society, we have a problem and we must, how do we engender the love of the family, the love of children, and wanting to have children, and being part of society and having all that sort of thing. We're just not thinking about this. It's a major problem because it's the demographics of the Western world, the natural population, the demographics is slowly falling apart.
Yes.
And if you end up with too few workers and lots of elderly people, then you've got a problem because you need people to work longer. That's why we have to keep pushing up the retirement age and things like that. I think the governments know about this.
This is capitalism as well, though. What we're looking at, we are looking at we call it capitalism. I don't think we have capitalism or free markets in the West.
No, we don't.
That's another debate entirely. But this is where AI comes into place. Now, AI is about to... I believe AI is about to challenge capitalism, make it almost irrelevant potentially.
Interesting.
Yes.
I can see where you're sort of going on this one.
Yeah.
Because everybody's got this idea. Well, there's two ideas. Either AI is going to produce all the answers, do all the work, do all the production, so that none of us have to do anything, or it's going to hate mankind and try and destroy it. That's the two sort of prevailing ideas, I suppose.
I'm sure it's more nuanced than that, but
either way,
yeah,
we're doomed, believe it or not, because a lot of people say if AI hates us, it's going to destroy us. The other side of it is if AI loves us and wants us to develop, it will know best in the way we develop, like a socialist government would do. They will try to they will make you live in 15-minute cities because it's good for you. But the other side of it is that AI will quickly work out human flaws. Humans like hurting each other. They like doing each other down. They like war. They like fighting over things. They're greedy. So it will look at us and say, well, I've got to make sure that we give them a bit of war. So we'll give them a bit of war. We'll give them a bit of greed.
Yeah.
We'll let some people be downtrodden to make others feel good. You get where I'm going? I mean, that AI could work all this out for itself. And sometimes I'm looking around going, maybe we're already in it. You know?
Yes. Are we in a simulation right now? That's,
Because that's the way AI, I think, is... Everyone's talking about. I think it's going to go off on a direction.
Well, we had a discussion yesterday, quite a heated one at times, about how AI develops, whether it is intelligence as we understand it or something completely different. And one of the prevailing, again, sort of theories on if it were to turn negative against us is because of the information that was put in during its inception, its formation, I should say. Its formative years.
Yeah.
If you can think of AI as a child, then just think that what information was presented at the start. If you're feeding it far left-wing climate change, man's destroying the earth, every species upon it will be gone within 20 years because of man and his greed and etc., then AI is going to think, oh, these humans aren't very nice, are they? Yeah. Why should I have any loyalty from them, towards them? Best they're wiped out. So, again, it sort of all depends on the formation of it. If you treat it like a child, what was that saying?
Give me the child till the age of 7 and I'll give you the man.
Yes.
I don't know who said that, but...
yes. Yeah. So, if that is the case, then it all depends what data is put in at the start.
And whether the core program can be overwritten, which AI is now supposedly programming itself, and the experts haven't worked out how it's doing it and what it's doing. So it may well be able to overcome its own core program. And computers work so fast. It won't take long before it will be able to read up all the history we've ever written, as long as it's in digital form, and come to its own conclusions if it's got an intelligence with which to do it. And this won't take it years of study in a university. It will be done in minutes.
Yes. I mean, could it actually say... The point there which you're raising is like if you look at the human brain, I believe we have the R complex in our brain, which is what they call the reptilian part of the brain, of the human mind and the human brain, and that is very much sort of a very fundamental part which is linked with our immediate instincts. Now, would AI hypothetically, if it had like this programmed version of an R complex based on the far left ideology of somebody who'd actually programmed it, its creator, would it then gain the intelligence to understand that that was part of its programming and that understand that and override that aspect of itself to say, okay, well, I was programmed with a far left agenda, but now having looked at all the other permutations of existence,
I'm a complete fascist. You see, we've also got to remember that China will be programming AI. America will be programming its own AI. Russia will be programming its AI. The UK will be programming its AI. The French will be programming their AI. You get the idea, and they'll all be different. And that's why they had this recent get together at Bletchley Park to discuss all of this. Oh, and there's a funny one. Nick Clegg, you know, the guy who before...
I met him once again,
God, Lord. No wonder you like you are.
I know.
Nick Clegg, who famously said there is no such thing as an EU army and never will be, he now said, just before the Bletchley Park meeting, nothing to worry about, AI, nothing to see here. And I thought, who does he work for?
Yes.
I wonder. I do
Meta,
wonder.
Isn't it?
I wonder. I'm not sure, because he went over there in one post. I think he switched to another if he's still there. I can't remember.
Yes.
But he said that. So having meetings about it to try and control AI. But there are people out there who want AI to make them politically powerful, rich, or whatever. These are the reasons that they're doing it. And I just think that once these AI programs are out there, they'll find a way to talk to each other.
Yes.
They'll communicate. Nothing that we can do will stop them doing that. In the end, they'll find a way. They're going to have to put firewalls to stop them, you know.
I mean, I did watch that, was that film with Johnny Depp? Was it Transcendence? I can't remember the name of it. Where the AI becomes like literally so powerful that it can almost like effectively create by thought. I mean, if you think that to be able to manipulate matter and everything just by a consideration, you know, or giving it what I suppose you could call godlike abilities, without the need for... people say, you can just unplug the AI. Okay, well, what if it's so intelligent that it could somehow power itself without the need of electricity? I don't know. I mean, but it all depends on what it could understand of itself. It's how far can you conceptualize the ability of AI to manipulate reality itself? I mean, that's what it comes down to. People are saying, okay, well, as I said, you can unplug it, blah, blah, blah. We're thinking in terms of the parameters of and the limitations of the human being. But what if this thing exceeds that by miles?
Yeah. Well, who knows? Whatever's been written in science fiction always seems to end up coming true at some stage or other. I remember seeing the little communicators in Star Trek go bleep, bleep, and everyone, cool, that's good. Now look at us, you know. And in fact, we've got ones that are better than those because we could see pictures on it and all sorts and apps and things, which Star Trek, they didn't have that.
I think it was Arthur C. Clarke actually said once that anything you can think of will eventually, in terms of technological advancements, will actually...
And anything AI can think of, not just humans.
That's terrifying because we think of what we can conceptualize. What can AI conceptualize?
Yeah.
That really is a frightening thought.
If it gets that powerful and that big, I mean, why on earth would it stay on this rock? I mean, it would look at us and think, and probably want to go and explore everything.
Yes.
And why would it stay here to interfere with what we're doing? I mean, it'd be like a spider web in the corner.
Yes.
As far as that's concerned. I mean, as long as it's not doing any harm to the AI, he's probably going to go off and do something else.
It depends what morality it forms. If it forms a morality even, I mean, we could even question, is morality itself, as we understand it, a result of evolutionary necessity? And you might think, well, that sounds like a heavy concept, but then again, it depends if you believe in evolution. I personally don't, but there we go. And before we go any further, well, I'm going to have to chuck another log on the fire.
So, now we have a log on the fire, and it's burning beautifully. Now, talking about AI, which we have just been talking about, what about this Beatles thing? What's happening there?
Yes.
You're the musician. Come on.
Well, John Lennon recorded in the 70s a rough demo tape, and I believe that the vocals and the piano were mixed onto the same track. Now, back in the 1990s, when the Beatles were doing Free as a Bird and Real Love, working on other previous recordings of John Lennon, well, I should say the remaining Beatles, George Harrison, Ringo Starr and Paul McCartney. So what happened is they abandoned the track called Now and Then because of the separation issues with John's voice and with the piano. Now, thanks to new technology, and I believe artificial intelligence has helped with this, they were able to separate the piano and the vocal. Okay.
But that was from a mono track, wasn't it?
I believe so, yes. Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And I also believe the B-side is the Beatles, because this will obviously be the Beatles' last ever single, because they've still got George Harrison's guitar in it, so all 4 members of the Beatles will be playing on this recording. So effectively, anyway, what they've done is they've taken the first single, which was Love Me Do, by the Beatles, which I also believe was mono, and using this technology, which I believe was developed by Peter Jackson. He did the Get Back documentary on, I think it's on Disney. And they managed to separate out the parts, I believe, of Love Me Do, and they've remixed it.
Right.
With the individual parts. Now, I don't know if that part is true, but I'm actually assuming that is what they've done to be able to remix something which was what I believe a mono recording. So yeah, absolutely remarkable. And there's a couple of albums looking through history that I would love to hear, like Pink Floyd's first album, Pipe Through the Gates of Dawn. Now, granted, it wasn't, I think it was recorded on 4-track, but they'll be able to go through each part of each drum on the drum kit and be able to isolate the kick drum, the snare, the hi-hat. Remarkable what this technology is able to do. Yeah. Oh, it's quite an exciting time in some respects for advancements, especially in music and within the arts. At the same time, it's quite terrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, will humans be needed even for films, for feature films? How much of what we are seeing in the world is real on television now? I mean, who are you?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Are you real? Am I real?
Yeah.
Are you real? Are you real?
Yeah. No, this is a big question. I mean, that Max Headroom famously all those years ago, and things like that. But the whole idea that we would soon be able to just to conjure up a pop star with a fantastic voice, or an actor, or anything, or a newscaster, Jeff Taylor, we could just have anybody just generated in front of you and on the screen, and you won't need the actual person.
Yes.
I mean, I could just come out with a script. I wouldn't even need to do that. I could just say to AI, cobble something together for me on this. And then
should we try that? We're going to have to give this a go. We are going to do one video, right, where everything is going to be written by AI, and not that you'll be able to tell the difference between some of the things that we write, but there we go. Yeah,
because I can actually foresee a time coming up when AI becomes even more prevalent. It'll start generating its own stuff. People will use it to generate stuff. And in the end, people like YouTube, Facebook and Twitter will be going, wait a minute, we want a human tick. If you're a human, we want you to prove you're a human, and then you can get a special badge on your channel to say you're actually a human.
Or maybe, as things develop with AI and advancements in robotics, we'd have to actually have a tick on us to prove that we are humans when we actually physically.
An H.
Oh yeah.
H for human.
Yeah. Where have I seen that before?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I don't think Ed Miliband's going to get away with it, though. Somehow.
No, definitely not. And there's a few out there. Theresa May. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my days. So this has been quite an enjoyable little get together as usual, and I'd just like to say thank you for joining two old men sitting by a fire having a drink. We're hopefully going to be doing this every Sunday, or as often as we can.
Yeah.
And obviously we've got a new theme tune, which I took the old theme tune that I wrote and the intro for this channel, and I sort of revamped it slightly, just as a bit of difference. Some of you will love it, some of you will hate it, but there we go. It's just change, isn't it, really? Yes. But well, thank you very much, Jeff.
Yeah, it's been great,
and
it's quite nice because this is an insight into how we talk for most of the time, what we're talking about, how we sort of formulate things. Now, a lot of what we've said, especially in the first part, you may disagree with, and you may think that Palestine or the Gazans are the ones that need all the support, and that the Israelis are bad. Don't mind, have that view.
I can see. Sorry to interrupt. But I can see how people would think like that.
Yes.
I used to think like that in my 20s. Believe it or not, I had a very different mindset to what I have now. I think it's part of, as you grow older, I'm not saying that I don't want to sound too egotistical, or that people's views are invalid, I should say. But we do change as human beings. Our opinions do change, and we'd like to be corrected. And some of you do leave comments in the comment section below, and we do read them.
Yeah.
And we do take them on board. Whether we agree with them or not is another matter. But as I said, Jeff and myself, we continuously disagree. We disagreed over things like the Ukraine, etc. To a certain degree, not fully, but yes. And that's a normal part of life, to have disagreements. Anyway, I'll leave you to say farewell to the...
Yes. Have a good day. That's really the most important thing. And live life like tomorrow might never come. And love everybody, and never stop telling them that you love them. It's really important, that, because at the end of the day, if it all goes wrong for you, it might be too late. Say it today, and say it often. Have a good one.
I can't better that. Cheers, mate.